All right. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for taking the time to join our webinar. We're just going to wait a minute or two to give other participants to join in. All right, I think we can kick things off. So, good morning, good afternoon again, wherever you are. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join our webinar here at Navisto titled CDP 2025 in Review from Hurdles to How-tos. In this particular webinar, we're going to look back on the 2025 submission cycle for CDP, where we will uncover some lessons learned. We will explore how companies responded to new challenges, and that's where I'm very excited to have a guest speaker join our panel. And we are going to share some practical advice for those gearing up for the 2026 cycle. By way of introduction, my name is Rajiv Jalam, and I'm the Global Director of Sustainability Solutions and Sales Engineering here at Novisto. Joining me is a very exciting and impressive panel. We have Diksha Rao Sahib, who is a senior ESG analyst here at Navisto. We have Sid Dysart, who is a customer success manager here at Navisto. We have Thibaut Demarquet, who is a senior ESG data analyst here at Navisto. And our guest panelist is Jennifer Holzer, sustainability reporting manager at Crocs. So together, the four of them are going to have a very exciting discussion for the next 20 or 25 minutes around the CDP 2025 reporting cycle. Just two housekeeping rules before we get going. This session is being recorded and will be shared with all attendees. And I also invite you to drop any questions that you have within the chat at the bottom of your panel. We'll address those questions as we flow throughout the session, or we'll save them for the dedicated Q&A time at the end. So thanks again for joining. Without further ado, I'll pass to Sid.
Hello, everyone. We are so excited to have such a packed house today. We truly have a really exciting agenda planned for you. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what the team is planning on running through today, and then we're really going to get things rolling. So basically, the conversation today is going to take you through the whole CDP process. We're going to start with, motivations for CDP reporting, then chatting a little bit about preparation, collaboration, some best practices there. We want to make sure everyone's set up for success. Then we're going to talk about the actual submission process, some technical highlights. Thibaut is going to talk about the Novisto API integration with CDP and the smooth process there for your submission. And then we're going to talk about some reflections on this year and also really leaning into looking ahead, the future of CDP and truly the future of questionnaires in the world of ESG. So without further ado, we're really going to get into when it comes to the motivation for CDP reporting. So Jennifer, I'm going to pass this to you. I've got a pretty loaded question here, but I'd love to hear your take. What really motivated your team over at Crocs to start reporting to CDP?
Yeah, absolutely. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. So, when we were evaluating different ESG raters and rankers, of which I'm sure we all know there are many, we're looking at, how do investors think about ESG raters and rankers? What are our peers doing? How does this voluntary disclosure help better set us up for other disclosures, both voluntary or regulatory? And really, those are the main reasons why we were motivated to do CDP. CDP has consistently been ranked by investors as their number one disclosure. If you look at the ERM Rate the Rankers report, a number of our peers have been doing CDP and have been doing CDP for a while. So when we think about that, that helped to inform the decision. And then also that alignment with other frameworks. So CDP is always, or for a long time, has been well aligned with the TCFD framework. And now looking at some of the California climate regulations, doing CDP this year also benefits to help prepare for those, both the 261 climate risk disclosure as well as 253 the greenhouse gas emissions disclosure. And I know California is not the only place in the world doing climate disclosure, so definitely helps from that perspective.
No, but I feel like California truly has been such a hot topic, especially with our customers and all of the
Yes.
changes happening there. It's definitely, I know I can speak for our organization. It's top of mind in pretty much every conversation we've been having over the last few months. But that's really great to know. I appreciate the context, especially
Mhm.
it being obviously investor driven, but then also, you guys have a really good pulse on what's also happening with your competitors and what's happening in the market. Before you used Novisto for CDP, you know, could you walk me through maybe some of the earlier challenges you were having with your CDP submission process before you ended up pivoting and using Novisto?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can speak to that from personal spirit experience beyond even just working at Crocs. I've been reporting to CDP with various organizations for the last 5 years, so lots of experience doing it manually. I think the biggest challenge of doing it without a software solution is just how much content there is to manage. Especially last year, like looking at the 2024 questionnaire, there were huge changes compared to the 2023 questionnaire, and keeping track of that manually meant that I had to, go through and read all of CDP's documentation about what changed year to year, have to make sure that I'm mapping the correct content from the previous year into this year's currently. And that whole process just didn't really exist with Novisto because Novisto was able to ingest my 2024 response and automatically map it to the appropriate questions for 2025. So already that process didn't exist. I think the other big challenge with doing this manually is managing draft reviews because CDP is a 200-page document in Word, right? And so that's really challenging to go to my various SMEs across the company, my legal teams, whatever, and say, "Hey, can you parse through this 200-page document?" In Novisto, you're able to send customized requests to different people. So I could send, just a couple of questions out to get reviewed. Or even if it was someone like legal reviewing the whole system, they now can walk question by question in a way that's much more user friendly than scrolling through a Word document. And then, of course, the challenge of getting it into CDP's portal, if you're going from a Word document, you're copying and pasting every single answer. And I know we'll talk about this later, but with that API integration with CDP, that whole process is done for you as well. So lots of challenges around managing the process that were definitely made easier this year.
I love that. It was so funny. I feel like when I started working in the world of ESG, I never realized how many spreadsheets people were building and how
Of
much
course.
time people were spending in spreadsheets and seeing people move and kind of, transition to Novisto for CDP, able to get out of a lot of those spreadsheets and, really see everything in one place. And I think you summarize it quite well there, being able to send out those customized questions. This is a perfect segue basically into our next portion, really talking about prep and collaboration. And Deeksha is also going to kind of join this part of the conversation to share some best practices and what she especially sees as well from the ESG analyst side of things. But I'd really love to talk a little bit more about how you actually manage the process from prep really all the way into submission. Because, when it comes to getting ready for CDP, you've already highlighted this, like there are so many moving parts, data readiness, timelines, SME coordination.
Mhm.
I feel like it could be managing CDP could truly be someone's full-time job. And I mean, we see lots of our customers who bring in consultants to manage this
Mhm.
process because it is really intense. So, um, Jen, if you could give us a quick overview. I mean, you talked a little bit about the process when once you've sent things out, but how did your team really approach the prep to lay the groundwork to make the process as seamless as possible this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say, I mean, it's in my title, Sustainability Reporting Manager. So I'm doing most of the prep work, which I'm sure there's lots of other folks in my position. I think the first thing that I always do is to attend, one of CDP's webinars, learn what has changed compared to previous years. I know this year they tried to change very little, which I was very grateful for. And so first step is always just becoming more knowledgeable about what this year is going to look like. And then, of course, once they release that timeline, building a project plan. So this is not our first year doing CDP, so we did have a good sense of who needs to review what content, where we need to pull in internal audit versus legal versus some of the SMEs actually doing, emissions reductions activities or strategy, and then mapping out who needs to review what questions, what timeline, and of course, working backward from that submission deadline to make sure that all of our reviews will work well in place. The next thing to do was to train users on Novisto. So again, in previous years, we had done this in Word and spreadsheets and whatnot. And so wanted to make sure that anybody who was coming into the platform felt very comfortable with how to navigate it and also how to do their review, whether they were initial reviewer or an approver in the process, but going through and starting with that in training, which I absolutely had support from for the Novisto team, but I was pretty well trained myself and able to help folks as well. Um, and then as far as the actual content management, I mentioned that Novisto was able to map my previous year's CDP submission onto this year. So that already gave me a big head start compared to last year's. And then it was kind of my job to go through and update questions based on what had changed the previous year, what we had put out in our ESG report, we call our comfort report, and to kind of manage those content changes, which I can safely say this year was a lot less than years prior.
I do love that. So Disha, I'm gonna pass it over to you because I feel like Disha, you work so closely with so many of our customers, really supporting the process that Jen has mentioned in terms of preparation, but also you have provided more of that consultative lens as well, and helping people determine what they should respond to certain things, what they should spend a bit more time on. So I'd also really love to hear, Disha, some of the best practices and recommendations that you have for preparation, or if there's anything that Jen really talked about that really stood out to you that you're like, oh, this is a must have to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. We see a lot of customers starting with that understanding of what the layout is of the questionnaire, and also understanding which teams need to be involved and what kind of collaboration is required. And that is another point where we bring out the benefits of a platform like Novisto, where people are able to manage approvals. Like you're not chasing people asking to review the content and have their final go, because the platform notifications are doing that job for you by just turning on the switch. So it's really the collaborative effort that it takes. It's the time that you're spending in trying to reach out to people, getting their information, and not just one review. You have like multiple reviews by different teams. So just understanding all of that as a context in the context of your organization, and how a platform can help you be better organized. And like Jennifer said, her title, it's the manager. So yes, you should be doing more of that work than getting into the nitty-gritties, which the software can do. Like they can remind people to do their jobs, right? So we've seen this being more recognized by the teams, and we try to suggest and encourage them to leverage the different benefits, the different features, in order to be more efficient in their way to CDP response. Another point I would also like to highlight is the benefits that they see in leveraging either CDP response for other disclosures, or already use the existing information for CDP response. And this is done in an efficient way with the platform, because we already have those overlaps. We are able to lay them out for them to show it in a better way that makes sense, and that they can use and reuse the different data that they have collected. truly saying it the source of truth and being able to collect once and report multiple. So this is what we see more and more customers looking to leverage and really taking the most of the platform.
I think that's such an important piece to mention, right? This idea where a lot of this information that's being asked by CDP is required by other frameworks. I mean, Jennifer, we were talking about California earlier, those new disclosures. Um, right, it's kind of the same thing that's being asked over and over again. And truly, like to all of the ESG experts on this panel, like your goal here is to get the most accurate information, the best information. Your job is not to be chasing people down, to ask the same people the same questions 6 or 7 times throughout the year, right? Like you are being measured on the quality of the data and how things are going from that perspective. So I really love how you both hit on a lot of those automations as well in terms of recurring requests, notifications, being able to duplicate things from previous years, right? Like I see some of my customers are on this call, and I know you've all heard me say this, but the idea of, working smarter, not harder, like let's leverage the platform and these systems to really make sure that you guys are focusing on the KPIs that matter to you, rather than kind of that busy work of getting things sorted and getting things organized. Part of that busy work piece, I guess I'll call it, from the submission process is also like getting the questions into the platform. And I really want to spend some time talking about our API integration that we have with the CDP team, and really talking about kind of some of the really cool technical stuff that Thibaut and his team have been working on there. So, Thibaut, why don't I pass it over to you to take it over?
Sure. Thank you, Sid. So yeah, definitely, Novisto is a CDP accredited solution provider. So it means that it allows you to have your data go from Novisto into CDP in an automated way, meaning like just a one-click button that you just need to press in order to have your data automatically move from Novisto to the CDP platform. So it means that you can ensure the traceability of your data and that data is correct. Basically, the flow and the high level is at the beginning, your historical responses, for this year it was 2024 responses, are automatically imported into Novisto, and then into Novisto, that's where you are able to respond to CDP. You are able to access your documents, to access all your ESG data, to access to previous responses, to collect data directly from your contributors as Dixa shared, etc., etc. And then when you are done, when all your data has been collected, when you know you have a full audit trail, the traceability from who has contributed to this data point, etc., you are automatically able to send it to CDP. In one click, in a few minutes, the data, your responses are available on CDP, and you are ready for the final submission. So that's basically how the process looks like and what has been shared before.
Yeah, I found this process to be extremely helpful and reduce a lot of time. In years past, I would have to book, a day or two to go through the process of copying and pasting all of the information from a Word document into the CDP portal, and then going through it again and again and making sure that I copied and pasted it right, or even bringing in another team member for that second pair of eyes. This was so much more seamless. All that I had to do was go into the CDP portal and do my one last check to make sure that everything transferred correctly. And so that was done in like an hour or two compared to previously, when it would take much longer than that. And honestly, there were very few issues. I think there was one date issue that's known where Novisto and CDP, like when you transfer it over, the dates are off by one day, but we kind of knew that going in, and that was an easy fix. Everything else was very seamless, and again, a huge time reduction. So yeah, we found this API submission process very helpful.
Right. And I feel like, Jen, that's exactly it, right? It's that reduction of the busy work, the copying, the pasting, and not just reducing that, again, those pieces and that pieces of work, but also reducing the risk, right?
Yes,
You've already had
of
legal,
course.
you've already had finance review it. And I'm going to be honest, sometimes when we copy and paste, it's not always perfect. It's not always perfect. If you miss a piece, you miss a chunk, and you really, especially if you've already had certain teams go through it and approve it, you don't you don't want to mess those pieces up before everything gets submitted. So, but final section for today, and then we're going to open up the floor for Q&A. Jennifer, so now that you've been through it once, I'd really love to hear your take, and how do you see this process evolving for your team in the future using CDP, Novisto, and this submission process?
Yes. Well, I hope that next year, looks similar to this year and that it goes very smoothly. We absolutely will be using Novisto again for the process. I'm excited about, we have to do our 261 report this year. There's a lot of crossover content. And so like that has been made easier. And also it's kind of a feedback loop back to CDP next year, right? As we think through next year's reporting, and getting that process in. So very much looking forward to having so much information already in the platform that's going to just, again, create that big head start when we begin CDP next year. And yeah, I think I'm hopefully this year went so well that I hope the next year goes very similar in how we're using it.
Absolutely. And I truly love and appreciate that perspective. It really shows that, this technology doesn't just automate, but it really gives the team visibility and confidence truly in what they're reporting and what you guys are disclosing. So I really appreciate that, Jen. And thank you, of course, to Jennifer, Deeksha, and Thibaut, all for sharing their opinions, their perspectives. I know we had a limited amount of time to talk about this today, but I feel like we definitely covered some really important topics. Rajiv, why don't I pass it over to you for Q&A if we want to open up the floor for some questions from anyone who is here.
Sounds good. Thank you so very much, Sid. And thank you to our panelists. I mean, half an hour goes by so quickly. I'm sure we can still have many more sessions on a deep dive into CDP, but thanks so very much for touching on a few different key topics. Taking a look at the Q&A that's coming in here. All right, let's run through a few of them, and they may be directed at some of the panelists, so I may just open the floor for feedback from anyone. All right, Jennifer, this one might go to you actually. We have a few participants who are obviously, still in the stage of using spreadsheets and trying to build internal buy-in for implementing technology, something that might be new to their business for sustainability reporting. So you take the newness of sustainability reporting for them, you take the newness of sustainability tech, and then you have spreadsheets, and they're obviously trying to build that internal business case. Any tips or recommendations that if you were leading the purchasing decision, how might you build that business case internally?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely led the purchase decision and business case making for us. So happy to speak to that. I think it's twofold, right? It's looking at how can we get the cost reductions and return on investment through a tool. So actually mapping out how many man hours it's currently taking in the process, applying a dollar amount to that, and then comparing to what you're looking at for a tool. I think, if you're also using consultant support, there might be opportunities for more efficiency through using a tool. That's absolutely something that we looked at, and if there's any potential cost and time savings there. And then I think it's the risk perspective that Sid touched on earlier of how is this tool going to help us to have better confidence in our disclosures, reduce risks as it relates to having good auditable information, making sure that the information that gets approved is what actually gets reported, and all of that process. So I would say those are the two main ways that we built a business case, was actually looking at the ways that this would help save us time and money, and then looking at the ways that this would help mitigate risk and support the process going forward.
I'm curious, as a follow-on question, did you have to educate your C-suite or senior management, or did they come with that ground level ESG knowledge already?
Oh, there's always education involved, right?
Mhm.
Very fortunate to work with a lot of people who are maybe a little more in the know than other organizations I've worked at, but there's always education, right? Because nobody knows exactly what it takes, exactly how much time it takes. and that overall level of effort, except the people who are actively in it. So yeah, absolutely did take a bit of education, both on what is CDP? How does it fit into our overall reporting strategy? But also, we're using Novisto for more than just CDP. It's our overall ESG, like data and reporting management system. So building that business case, in the other ways that it'll support our annual reporting process. And I can say that API with CDP definitely was a contributing factor. We evaluated a number of different tools. Some had that, some didn't. And so things like that, where it's just so obvious and easy to show an efficiency and like time and cost reduction, definitely helped with that decision making.
Got it. Okay. Keeping on that thread, we just had a question coming from an anonymous attendee. Jennifer, did you look into other solutions before deciding on Navisto, and what stood out for you in the decision?
Yes, we absolutely looked at other solutions. And honestly, we evaluated what tool that we were going to select for a year, probably at least. We put a lot of diligence into this process, looking at tools that maybe we were already using in other parts of the business, whether on our finance teams or elsewhere, as well as tools that were new to our business. And evaluating what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are the cost comparisons, what are the ways that they're going to help us achieve our goals as far as streamlining the reporting process, risk mitigation, all of that. So yeah, we absolutely looked at more than one tool. I would say what made Novisto stand out, it was a couple of different things. It was very clear that Novisto has been built by sustainability people for sustainability people and for business in a way that some of the other tools that maybe originated as a different type of tool and then have created a sustainability module didn't quite have all of that kind of the advanced capabilities and the way like for example Novisto makes your requests for information or data extremely customizable in a way that some other systems were not able to do. They also had amazing audit trail. They had, API integrations with CDP and CSA, and a lot of experts on the team as well in a way that gave us good confidence, and also a good value proposition, right? There is a wide range of how much these tools cost, and Novisto absolutely came in at a positive price point that got us so much value for it in a way that some tools maybe costed more and didn't have as much of the functionality or expertise that we were looking for.
Thank you so very much. It sounds like, just to summarize, a key few points you mentioned there. So the fact that the solution is purpose-built was very important for you. As you said, built by sustainability practitioners for sustainability practitioners. You touched on cost, you touched on implementation and support and having that expertise with you throughout the partnership. So thank you so very much for that. I think we have maybe time for one, possibly two more. I want to ask this question from two perspectives. One, from the tech perspective, and also to get your wish list, Jennifer, from the market perspective. Obviously, the big acronym right now in the ESG space, especially tech space, is AI. I would love to open the floor to Sid and Deeksha and Thibaut just to share from their perspectives on the tech side of things. Do we see a role for AI in helping to improve CDP reporting or the preparation of CDP reports? Or do we see a role for AI in broader ESG reporting? And then, Jennifer, same question to you, but from the perspective of as a corporate in the thick and thin of ESG reporting, what are your hopes and dreams for AI?
If I can go first. To your question, Rajiv, yes, I think there are opportunities in leveraging AI, and there are a lot of avenues where we see people currently reusing not just their responses, but also in terms of the reporting exercise itself, right? You most probably always start from your last report and you look at how things have changed. So there is definitely a lot of help that the customers can get from that. And it's not replacing any of their work, but it's giving them an uplift to start with not a publish ready version, but a basic foundation for the new year's reporting exercise, right? And even with the AI's help, there is always human intervention there. There's always more than one pair of eyes. There's like several revisions and approvals that the reports go through. So that's just one layer. And we do see a lot of other ways that we can leverage AI in the platform itself. And that would be the AI roadmap of Novisto that's to come, and not to put in any surprise tricks there, but it's definitely one of our high priorities and consideration at this point.
Lots of innovation on the horizon, right? Jennifer, what are
Yes,
your hopes and
definitely.
dreams for AI from the corporate side?
Yes, absolutely. And I will say I'm still learning and trying to understand AI myself. So definitely no expert here. I think the ways that I hope that it will be useful is especially on the analysis side, because it takes a lot of time to analyze what are our peers doing, what are the regulatory trends, and I think there's opportunities. I hope there are opportunities to use AI to help streamline that process. I mean, I think, one use case that could be interesting is even using AI to analyze your own previous year's report and see what comes out of it, right? Because that can give you some reflection into what your key stakeholders might be getting out of it. If an investor or a wholesale partner or customer reads the report, what could their views be? And I bet there's a way to use AI to help get some of those insights out. So really, I think about it from that kind of analysis and upskilling perspective. Like Deeksha said, I don't think we're heading towards a world where we will or should have AI write all of our reports for us, but I think there's absolutely opportunity to help with making our reports better, whether that's in the initial planning phase or supporting draft review or things like that. But again, no expert here. I would definitely lean on the Novisto team. Curious to see what kinds of innovations coming out of this. And yeah, I think we're all just kind of watching to see what will happen.
Change is truly the only constant in the ESG space, in the ESG tech space. So yeah, definitely exciting times ahead. I know we're just about a minute over time. Maria, Jean-Francois, I promise we will follow up with email responses to your questions. Thank you so very much for submitting them. But for now, I'd like to wrap up today's session. So thank you so very much to Sid, Deeksha, Thibaut, and Jennifer for joining our panel on a retrospect into CDP. And we're now very excited for the 2026 submission cycle, whatever it's going to bring. As a reminder to our attendees, this webinar was recorded and will be circulated, and we'll also follow up with any of the questions that were unanswered. So thank you so very much, and looking forward to chatting with you all soon.
Thank you so much. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Take care. Bye.